Hey everyone, James Irwin, AutoCat01 on both PokerStars and Full Tilt Poker here today. Just going to do a rather short video on a concept I think a lot of people struggle with and really are suffering. Their ROIs are certainly suffering as a result of this, and it's quite simple, and we're just going to dive right into it. And it stems from a simple question of how many blinds is too many blinds to shove? You know, should you be pushing X or Y hand with, say, 10 blinds, for instance? And I don't necessarily think that that's always the right question to be asking, because there's a conversion that needs to happen that's going to be more important than just the amount of blinds that you're going to have. And I want to kind of break that down for you and kind of help you understand why you might have to ask a slightly different question. So let's just simply start with an example where we have 10 big blinds and we're faced with a decision of shoving a hand like Queen 10 off or Ace 5 suited from mid to later position. And before we can really even get to the answer of whether this is a shove or not, we have to start to look at, is this, of course, post-ante, where you're going to have more incentive to shove because the pot's going to be larger, or if it's pre-ante, where you're going to have slightly less incentive to shove because the pot's going to be slightly smaller. That said, there's something else we have to do here, even when you calculate when you figure out if it's post or pre-ante, and that's going to be figuring out how big that the antes are and how that affects your stack and, you know, the utility of your stack. And there's a couple important concepts discussed in pretty good detail in a few of the more popular books. I know Dan Harrington gets into the concept of M, and then in the book Kill Everyone by Lee Nelson and company, they talk about chip stack index and cost per round. So just to name a few things here, we're going to have CPR, which is going to be cost per round. We're going to have CSI, which is chip stack index, and then we're going to have M from Harrington, which is going to equal CSI. So M and CSI are essentially the same thing. Now, what cost per round is, say the blinds are 50, 100, and we do not, and our stack is 1,000 chips. We're going to be looking at a 10 BB stack, and an M of 1,000 divided by 150 is going to be slightly under 7. We'll go ahead and get exact numbers here with our trusted calculator. Da-da-da. 6.66 is going to be our CSI or M, and the CPR is simply going to be that 150, and I clearly should have done that in reverse, and we'll go ahead and clean this up just a touch. My apologies there. Your cost per round is going to be 150, so you're not going to be incurring any antes in any hand. So you're just going to simply be, you know, taking on every time that it comes around at a 6 or 9 player table, you're going to take on a small blind of 50 and a large blind or big blind of 100. So it naturally makes sense that your CPR is 150. Your CSI, chip stack index, how many times you can get around with blinding out before you blind out if you were to not play a hand, is the same as M, so it's going to be that 1,000 divided by 150. Now, when we look at a post-ante spot, for instance, we're going to have 50, 100, and then /25 is the ante, and we have a similar stack of 1,000. We would still have a 10 BB stack. But we're going to have a different CPR here, and let's assume that we're at a 9-player table here, and the antes are going to be 25, which is gonna be too big, so we're gonna go ahead and change that just immediately. We'll make it far more realistic. We're gonna have the antes of 10 here. So if you took 9 times 10 players, or more importantly, 9 times at that 9-player table, you're going to be hit with the antes of 10 each. So you're going to have 50 plus 100 plus 90 equals 240 is going to be your cost per round. And now we have to do the measurement of 1,000 divided by 240 is going to be 4 point super small. 4.16. 4.16. CSI or M. So, if we just look at how much antes are going to influence us here, we've now gone from a pot that is worth 240 chips if we're able to pick it up versus a pot that's worth 150 chips if we're to pick it up. And if you just did a simple calculation on that, when we scoop the pot of 150 chips, it's worth 6.66 or like 15% of our stack is a gain, whereas with just the antes, it'll be worth 240 chips, so 24% of our stack. So we're far more incentivized percentage-wise and from a chip gain perspective to be shoving this hand post-ante. Now, I think that something people do there, if they even get to this step, which is great, is they stop there, but you can't really do that and just go, okay, it's pre-ante or post-ante, and do it on the fly, because there's going to be situations where, I'm going to make some numbers up here, you might run into a situation that this is going to hold true in like a big 11 or big 22 or some full tilt poker tournaments. It might be something in that range. It could be slightly lower or bigger. The antes might not come into play until slightly later in the tournament. But when you get into some of the hyper turbo tournaments on PokerStars, some of the big ante tournaments, and then some awkwardly structured larger ante tournaments, you might run into a situation that it could look like this. And I just want to roll through real quick and see what that might do to our situation. So we're going to still have the 10 ante and stack of 1,000. We're going to have a similar 10 BB stack, and now we're going to be looking at 50 plus 100 plus 9 times 20 is going to be 180. So now we're at 330 of CPR. Any time that we're now pushing, we're going to be picking up 33% of our stack, which is a significant amount. And 1,000 divided by 330 is going to be 3.03. 3.03 CSI or N. And just want to check the time on the video. I always like to keep these very short and sweet, get to the point. Just rolling back through it again in closing. We're looking at a situation here where we have 10 blinds. We're faced with the decision of a random hand. We've identified Queen 10 off or an Ace 5 suited type hand, and just one of those marginal situations you might see posted online, or you're not sure about yourself, and you go, and this seems like it might be a little light, but it should be a shove, and you really don't know. And you can't just look at the big blinds. We got to dive a little bit farther in here and really work through these things. And fortunately, there are some resources out there for us. I think the pushbot charts and Kill Everyone, as well as some charts online. I believe JIT Expert and a few others on 2+2, and I'm sure there's many more, have done things in the M range, and I'm not sure if JITs actually are. I might stand corrected there, but there are resources, especially in Kill Everyone. I think it's Appendix A, and then there's the calling ranges on the flip side of that are just excellent resources. So if you are looking at these tricky spots, you got to go through this, and again, just see the massive changes that it's going to make. We're reducing our CSI or M here from 6.66 without antes to 4.16 with a semi-normal ante, and then all the way down to 3.03 with a larger ante. So just to give you some idea of how that works out, again, it's James Irwin, AutoCAT01. Hope I was able to teach you how to just go about calculating these things today. Thank you so much. Cheers.